First question, what does Sintercast do?
So Sintercast has developed a technology to control the production of a new type of cast iron. It's called compacted graphite iron, or CGI. CGI is strong and stiff, but it's also really good at transferring heat and dampening vibrations. So it's ideally suited to applications which have both a mechanical load and a thermal load. And the best application for that is in engines. Our material is used in engines for passenger cars, for commercial vehicles, and also for off-road things like agriculture, marine, rail, and construction. With the stronger material, engine designers can push the engines harder, so we make them smaller and lighter. We get more performance from each liter, better fuel economy, and lower CO2 emissions.
How was the development during 2018 when looking at underlying segments?
Yeah, 2018 was a great year for us. We were almost record everything. Every sector was up. Passenger cars were up 4%, which is really interesting because most of our passenger cars are diesel. A lot of discussion now about diesel decline, but our volume was up 4%. Commercial vehicle production was up 41%. Components for passenger vehicles other than engines, it means exhaust manifolds, turbocharger housings, that was up 113%. It's a really big increase, but it's a small part of our production, so it's easy to make a big percent on a small denominator. It represents about 4 or 5% of our total production. And industrial power was up 45%. So everything was up. Revenue was up, result was up, profit was up, earnings per share, production, and the sampling cups, everything was up between 15 and 20%. So double-digit growth across the board, and that's always our goal.
One big thing recently is the order from Scania. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, Scania is a great order for us. Our current revenue is about 90 million. That production will start in 2020, and it will ramp up between the next 3 to 5 years. Maybe by then, you know, we will have grown well over 100 million in our revenue, but still 20 million, it represents kind of a 20% increase in our production. So for Sintercast, it's a big order, but I think for the industry, it's a big message. Here's a foundry. It's not just Scania, but it's the entire Volkswagen group, because they'll make the engines for MAN, Volkswagen, and Navistar as well. Here they are committing to a new foundry in the year 2020. It's a 1.5 billion Swedish crown investment. You know, we always hear talk about electrifications and cars and trucks changing to electric, but this group simply isn't going to invest that if they don't run it for more than 10 years. So I think it shows a real confidence for the continued use of internal combustion engines, diesel engines for heavy-duty transport.
The result from installations was 4.6 million SEK in 2018. How is the outlook for the future in this segment?
Yeah, so our average installation revenue from 2010 to 2017 was 7 million Swedish crowns. 4.6 was below the average, so at first sight it may appear to be a bit of a disappointment. We received 2 orders in mid-year. This is for our new tracking technologies. They weren't installed before the end of the year. That's just because of foundry scheduling, so we'll get those in the first half of this year. Both of those orders were slightly north of 1 million Swedish crowns, so if you put them on top of the 4.6, we would have been more or less 7. So from a financial point of view, it was a bit of a low year, but operationally I think it was quite a normal year for installations. In the end, they give us a good start to this year. We've already had a couple of installation announcements, so I think that we can beat the average this year. The Scania that we just discussed, that's a 5 million crown installation, which will be recognized in 2020. So that one gives us a good head start on 2020. For me, it looks like we have 2 years with above average installation revenue.
Sintercast is closely linked to the diesel engine. What are your thoughts about the future of the diesel engine?
Yeah, we are. You know, we break down our production between passenger vehicle, commercial vehicle, and industrial power. We're about 50% passenger vehicle, 40% commercial vehicle, and 10% industrial power. So commercial vehicle, industrial power, they will remain diesel, right? I mean, there's simply not going to go to petrol. So there's no exposure there. On the passenger car side, 50% of our business, 20% of that is for petrol engines, and the remaining 80% is for diesel. So if you do the math, It's 80% of 50%, so about 40% of our total volume is passenger car diesel engines. There is a discussion about a decline in diesel engine. Last year in Europe, it went from 45% down to 36%. You know, if you read the newspapers, you think maybe it went to zero. But there's a lot of diesel still there. Most people in our business think that it'll probably level out around 30%. But most of that decline is for small vehicles. There are diesel solutions. I have no problem at all that we will meet NOx emissions. The technology is available on the shelf today. But maybe it's about 1,500 euros. And if you put that on a small car that sells for 12,000 euros, it's just too big of a percent. You can't do it. On a luxury vehicle or an SUV, it's no problem. So the decline for diesel will be in small cars, and we're not there. All of our diesels are 3 liter and above, and a lot of them are for pickups and Super Duty pickups in North America, where it's more than 80% diesel. So really, I don't see a big exposure. I think that market will remain stable for us. And as I mentioned in the first question, our passenger car volume was up 4% last year. So, yeah, not worried.
And finally, looking forward, what is the biggest growth opportunity for Sintercast?
Biggest growth opportunity, we've said for the last more than 5 years that our biggest growth opportunity is commercial vehicle. This is where CGI is really needed, right? If you think about a car engine, a diesel car engine, the pressure inside the engine is probably around 170 bar. But in commercial vehicles, it's around 240 bar. So the pressure is much higher. The cylinder bore diameter is bigger. So, you know, load is always with area squared. Sorry for the technical detail, but as the diameter goes up, the area goes up even faster and the load goes up exponentially. So where you really need this stronger material is in the larger engines, commercial vehicles, and they'll be our biggest growth opportunity. At the moment, I would say that we have something like 25 to 30% of the new commercial vehicle engine components being specified in CGI. And I don't know whether it's 5 years in the future or 7 years or 12 years in the future, but in the fullness of time, they will all be CGI.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you.